Before there were websites that held information about ghosts, spirits, and folklore from around the world, I remember cutting out news articles and magazine articles that would talk about spirits, both local and international. I remember keeping them in a brown envelope. And I am obviously envious of the current generation of seekers, with all these sources that they can easily access with a few clicks and voice prompts. I may have lost that short brown envelope, but I'm slowly compiling a digital counterpart with the help of the information shared by our guest tonight. Tonight, we hear about Karl's story, his research, his goal, and his experiences with Philippine Spirits. Enjoy.
So tonight, our guest is the proponent of PH Spirits. So si Karl Gaversa. Actually, kung iisipin nyo, kumbaga part 2 na to. This will be part 2 or part 3 of the conversations I've seen online of Karl talking about his research, talking about his experiences also. So there was one with our friend, Earl from Philippine Campfire Stories. And there's another one I saw, yung sa Comics Man na podcast.
Comics Man.
Yeah, and that was a long one and very insightful. Ang dami mong na-share doon na. I hope to talk to you about some of that stuff. So right now, I have a 2-page questionnaire prepared. Pero, hi Karl, good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. So you've talked about this in the other appearances, you know, in the other podcasts. At what point did you decide to start yung website na PH Spirits?
Okay. It all started when I was an undergrad in UP.
Mm-hmm.
I vividly remember this one activity wherein I had to describe the number system of the Southern Subanan language, and it was boring.
Okay.
The number system was pretty much the same as Tagalog. So I had to interview an informant from that area who was currently working in QC then. And in between the interview, he told me about this creature from Zamboanga called the Menamid Talon and the Tamad Talon. Yeah, so I was like, whoa, I never heard about this before. So I changed the topic of my activity paper, and from there, I wanted something like that for the last thing I was ever going to do for my undergrad, which was my thesis. So my thesis was it's called The Myths of the Philippines. You can access it through Academia EDU. Everything's there. But the website really came from that idea, because before I had a website, I had a Facebook page. And it was really me just forcing myself to write stories every day until I could get the book published.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 5 years ago.
Wow. Uh-oh.
Okay, no, wait, it's 2023. That was 8 years ago.
Okay. May time jump pa.
There, I just really was intrigued by the fact, not only the fact that there were so many things out there about Philippine mythology. Well, I don't use the word Philippine mythology because it assumes that everyone in the Philippines has had the same lived experience. I like to use the words mythologies in the Philippines. So the book got delayed and more delayed. But in between, I was able to turn some of the stories into zines.
Okay.
My whole thing was, when I started actively investing money in this, was that I would take the lesser known or not at all known creatures
Yes.
from the Philippines and have people make art for them for the first time.
Mm-mm.
So you can see it in like a lot of the illustrations, and I'm surprised that a lot of people hadn't already illustrated these creatures. For example, the seven-headed serpent of Canlaon.
Mm-hmm.
I call it Can Serpent because in the folktale, there was an old king Laon and a youth Can, and Laon asked Can to kill the serpent.
Mm-mm.
I've never seen anything art like about it at all,
Yes.
and I go through Google a lot. So it's like, wow, these are things that need to be. They don't need to be taught, but they need to be taught. If that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yes. Actually, yun nga eh. Going through your stuff and going through Mr. Samar, yung
Edgardo Samar.
Oo, Kagilas Gilalas.
101
Yes.
kagilat-gilat
Oo.
lang.
So parang, going through your website tsaka going through that, recently na ako na-expose natatawa nga ako. I was talking with someone recently and he told me, hindi mo alam yung ano yung aso na parang aswang, sigbin. Kita mo. So parang nasabi ko, alam mo, nalaman ko lang yung sigbin when I started doing the podcast. When I heard the stories about it, that's the only time na I got to know about it. I mean, I told him nga, I was more immersed into the popular ones, into the popular
Like
mythological
Senchana,
creatures.
Tikbala.
Yes. Pero
Yeah.
when you go regional, you'll see, yes, there are similarities, but there are different features, there are different attitudes. I mean, there are different looks, diba? Per ano. And that's actually one of my questions for you, Carl. I'm assuming, since you went to ethnolinguistics, tama ba?
I graduated linguistics.
Linguistics, okay.
Ethnolinguistics was a class.
The class, okay. So assuming that, yes, you graduated linguistics, you have this interest in etymology. Or am I wrong to assume that?
Etymology is part of what I learned how to do. Like, for example, you have these things online where they try to do etymology, but it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Like for aswang, they said it's a combination of the words asin and bawang because those are what wards them away. And I'm
Yes.
like, that isn't right, because if you look at it linguistically, throughout the Southeast Asian area, you get like terms like keswange, group of witches in the Moluccan archipelago, and then you see this all branch out. It's like how the word halimau was introduced through the South, because harimau is a word for big cat, and it eventually became our word halimau,
Okay.
which is used for generically just as a monster.
Yes. Pero it's specific to our region, si Harimau. Or are there...
Sure, the word in general.
Okay. Okay. So yun, actually one of my, since you've been doing research on this and you've been studying it, have you seen other words in other parts of the country, meaning in the north, in the south, na may slight difference lang, pero when you look at the description, they're kind of the same thing? Have you had these observations?
Because some of the names are actually descriptive. Like you have in Zambales called the Numputul, and in Ilocano the Awan Ulo na, and they both mean headless one. There's also like the word pugot, but pugot in the north doesn't mean headless. It refers to a kind of capre-like creature.
Yes.
I do things by category and not exactly by name.
Okay.
So in my research, I'm like aswang, which are the kinds of aswang. You have the moon eaters. What kind of where the moon eater is from? Because that's actually like one of my favorite mythical creatures, beings that eat the moon during a lunar eclipse and have to be chased away by loud banging. And it's very interesting because in different parts of the country, it can refer to different creatures. So you have like the Manombo Tambanakawa, which is a giant scorpion or tarantula.
This is from where? Manobo, no? Tama, sorry.
Manobo. Yeah,
okay.
Manobo. It's in Mindanao.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Tambanokano of the Mandaya, which is a giant crab, who is also said to be the child of the sun and moon. You
Okay.
have the Arimaunga of the Maranao. And like one interesting there is like people rub their fingernails together so that it goes away.
Mm-mm.
You have obviously the most famous Bakunawa,
Yes.
but there are different kinds of Bakunawa. In Panay, for the Karayas, they think there's more than one bakunawa.
Okay.
There are two kinds. One with a transparent stomach and one with a thick-walled stomach. So partial lunar eclipses are explained by the transparent stomach bakunawa eating the moon, and full lunar eclipses are because of the thick-walled stomach. You have the giant raho
Mm-hmm.
from Batangas, Tagalog Batangas, and he is giant that found the means of getting the elixir of immortality from the gods,
Mm-hmm.
and the moon snitched on him basically, and now Raho chases the moon, and whenever he catches up to the moon, that's what happens when there's an eclipse.
Eclipse, yeah.
Yeah. The word Bakunawa can also refer to different creatures.
Mm-hmm.
In Palawan, for the Tagbanwa, their Bakunawa is a centipede.
Okay.
In Bohol, and this was from a text I found from the 1950s. It was a thesis, I think. The name Bakunawa refers to a bird. So
In Bohol.
in Bohol, yes. Like elders still say that the Bakunawa is a giant bird, which is similar to like the Minokawa of the Bagobos in
Mm.
Mindanao as well, or the Bawa that's also from that region of the Visayas. There's one of the interesting moon eaters, and I had just learned about this fairly recently where I interviewed a Tiboli elder.
Mm-hmm.
In the moon, there exists a dwarf called Ngapal who who's the caretaker of the moon. And the
Okay.
story goes that when Ngapal is away, people have to shout gongs and make loud noises so that Ngapal can return. If not, the moon is eaten by a being called the Sowu. It's a giant python.
A giant python. So snake-like talaga, no?
Yeah, there are a lot that are snake-like. The laho of the Tagalog is said to be a giant serpent. You have the sawa, which just basically means python, but it's believed in by the ati of the Panay, and in some Tagalog areas, that's from Maximo Ramos's work. There's also an interesting thing because a lot of these creatures are thought of as forces of nature. So there really isn't like, oh, this came from this, or this eventually became a moon eater or things like that. But one of the other fascinating things about moon eaters is this discrepancy between what it's described as, because every popular culture now has put the Bakunawa as the Philippine dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And originally, when these stories are documented, the moon eater was not called a dragon. It was either a serpent snake or fish-like.
Okay.
So you have some stories where the fish, as in like a giant shark,
Ah, okay.
that sort of thing. You can see it in remnants in Maximo Ramos's work, where, and I used Bacanoua
Okay.
to differentiate it from like the other Bakunawas out there.
Ako, ito you can interpret it however you want to interpret it. Meron ako nakausap. Again, ikaw, you might have an interpretation to this. May nakausap ako from Japan. Filipino siya. And hindi siya immersed into, well, that's what he told me. Hindi siya immersed into our folklore. Ganon. And then, he started to practice LNK. Are you familiar with LNK?
I'm sorry, I'm not.
Okay. So, it's lihim na karunungan. So, technically, it's Filipino hidden magic, parang ganon.
Okay.
Lihim na karunungan. It's an active practice here in the Philippines pala. Pero lihim siya talaga. So nakatago siya. Pero may lumalabas na sa TikTok. Pero in general, it is hidden. The practice is hidden. The techniques are usually passed down through mentors. Pero yun nga, meron lumalabas sa TikTok. And anyway, so he started to practice that. And he started to practice during the pandemic. And then, he was telling me a story na he started to get guides in Japan. In Japan, ha? And some of the guides he talked about sounded like beings from Japanese folklore. Especially mas
The yokai.
yokai eh. Pero based sa research ko, kasi after I talked to him, he described the creatures and I did some research. May ibang creatures na close. I wouldn't say that's it, pero close to some of the entities he's been seeing. And then, for some reason, his guides came to him one night. They said, "Oh, we have a problem."
Okay.
Tapos parang, okay, what's the problem? What his guide na parang kapre yung description niya, pero hindi kapre, had the head of a serpent or a dragon-like being. A head.
Okay.
So parang may dinecapitate. And then,
pagtingin ko, alam mo yung dala niya? Ulo ng baunawa.
paano mo na, so nakita mo? Or again, pag nakapikit ka, nakikita mo, ganun?
Kumbaga, nararamdaman ko yung nakabukas yung mata ko, pero hindi ko siya nakikita sa mata ko. Pero nakikita ko siya sa utak
Sa utak mo.
Parang ganun.
Oo.
So, nung umikot siya dun sa likod, binuksan ko yung glass door namin. Sinilip ko yung lanay namin. Nakita ko siya, nakaupo siya doon sa may... Tapos, sa ilalim niya, nakaapak siya doon sa ulo ng bakunawang malaki. Sobrang laki talagang yung ulo kasi yung laki na sasakyan. Tapos, maliwanag yung yung langit. Walang ulap, walang kahit ano. Tapos ako naman, tutulog na ako. Tapos hindi ako makatulog, nagyosi ako sa labas. Pag-yosi ko sa labas, naramdaman ko yung dalawa kong gabay lumabas. Pak! Paglabas na ganun, yung aura nila hindi normal, pandigma. Tapos, isa dito, isa sa kanan ko, isa sa kaliwa ko. Tapos maya-maya, naramdaman ko si Bergs, pumunta doon sa may tapat ko. Dala-dala niya yung espada. Sabi niya, pasensya na, andyan na sila. Alam mo ba, nung pagkasabi niya nun, hindi ako nagsisinungaling, kidlatan ako ng langit ngayon kung talaga nagsisinungaling ako. Nakita ko yung ulap, biglang umitim yung ulap namin. Tapos kumulog. Walang ulan, kulog lang talaga. Talagang, alam mo yung lupa namin, umaalog. Pumasok sa loob ng bahay. Sabi ko, putya, ang gagawin ko dito. Inastral ko. Alam mo yung nakita ko? 3 bakunawa umiikot.
Sa inyo, sa bahay nyo?
Kinakalaban nila. Hindi ko masabing imahinasyon yun kasi bawat hampas, bawat tumutugma dun sa ugong ng kulog.
Kulog,
Walang kidlat, kulog lang.
Kulog lang talaga?
Tapos yung kulog niya, hindi yung typical na kulog na Yung kulog niya, nararamdaman mo sa lupa, umaalog.
Fight sila sa sky. So bigla ako napaisip, wait, kasi from what I understand that, I'm just sharing with you what I understand from the people who tell me stories of their experiences with spirits and all that. From what I understand, depending on where you are, whatever entities or spirits you will see will most of the time, not always, most of the time be local to the country you're in. So if you're in Japan, you will see yokai. Kasi that's how the people there see them. Pag Philippines ka, yan nga, yung mga alam natin, yung mga na-research mo. So nagulat ako na merong bakunawa creature sa Japan. Pero wala hindi ako nag-extensive research. From what I've done, from the light research I've done, wala ako nakitang parang bakunawa sa Japan. So again, since you have that, you said you have this deep interest in moon eaters, would you have kind of, sorry to put you on the spot, would you have kind of an interpretation of what that could be?
Well, depending on how sensitive your friend was, it's not only the place, it's also the person that attracts specific kinds of entities to them.
Okay.
Like honestly, spiritualism great and great as all that. I have been offered to have my third eye open multiple times, but I'm just like, nah, not happy. So like I know of people who are haunted, not places that are haunted. So they would go to different places and wonder why there would always be sounds, there would always be things missing, and they just thought it was because of the place where they were in.
Yes.
And then when they consulted like a spirit medium, and they were like, "Nope, it's you. It's all you."
Yeah. So it's possible na, again, going back to that, it's possible na ano, similar to the idea of American gods. You bring along your beliefs, even if you're not that immersed. Parang
Neil Gaiman.
Neil Gaiman, yes, American God. So, di ba parang lumalabas medyo may truth to that sometimes, that you bring along the things you believe in, the things that
Yeah.
you, oh,
Because for some spiritual traditions, like for example, if you're an albulario, if you're related to an albulario, no matter how distant, that just means that your heredity is already predisposed to the spirit world.
yes.
There are different ways to become an albulario, actually. There are some that it's hereditary, and they can't die unless they pass on their powers to a relative. There are also some that are by chance. If they are possessed by a spirit, then and survive, then they will inherit the powers that will
Okay.
lead them to become an albulario.
Based on your research rin, have you seen or have you observed na yun nga, it is passed down through family most of the time. Similar to what you said, meron bang times na yun nga, yung random, yung parang mas hindi ko pa naririnig na meaning out of nowhere magkakaroon siya ng abilities. Usually kasi meron kamag-anak or ano, pero with your research, meron ba na walang nagpasa? Meaning, kagaya na-mention mo na pero may cases or parang just in passing siya na-mention? Or have you read na parang actual people saying that?
There is a story of I might be getting the place wrong, but I think it's from Ilocos, where this girl was possessed by seven kaibaan, which is an earth spirit of the Ilocanos. And it was because of that possession that she gained the power to become
Okay.
eventually a spirit healer. I actually like using the word spirit talker or spirit healer because that's more general. And like, because there are different names from all over the Philippines, and I
Yes.
don't want to just be like, oh, everything's the babaylan.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, have Mombaki, Penderapan, and others. So I just say spirit talkers.
Okay. Karl, medyo weird pero tatanong ko lang. You've talked about this before and again, this podcast is mostly about first-hand experiences. So, I'd like to ask, can you tell us about that experience of yours where you saw that woman in black?
So this happened when I was grade 5. My mom had passed away a couple of years prior, and I just started getting really sick. They brought me to the hospital, and nothing. Like all the tests showed that everything was normal. They couldn't find that what was wrong with me. And it came to the point where my family had to ask for an albulario or sorjero. And the moment that he went into the house, he went through the sala, he asked why there was a woman in black crying in my sala. And no one else could see it, just him. So he gave me an anting-anting. It was something wrapped in leaves, wrapped in a red cloth. And after that, I just started feeling better.
Mm-mm.
I lost the anting-anting.
Okay.
I don't know. I was a kid. But I don't think I needed it at that point.
So, pero, sorry. So I was wrong pala to say that you saw it. So it was the albalario who saw that lady in black. But you've never, ganun na yung question, never in your dreams mo siya nag-visit or anything?
No, actually, the place where I grew up was, it was an old army village called Jusmag. It's right where McKinley West is now.
Okay.
If you guys know the area, across McKinley L. And just weird stuff would happen. Like it was overgrown with like old trees. And like honestly, I'm pretty sure when Mega World started to demolish that area, someone definitely got cursed. But yeah, like I'd have things like I'd lose stuff and like I'd have my homework on the table, and then I leave for a bit to get a glass of water or something, and then when I come back, the homework's gone. So I spent like an hour looking for it around the room, and then after an hour, it just magically appears
Yes.
where it was before, and I'm like, the fuck is this?
Yeah.
So so there was like I'm pretty sure there were spirits there. Maybe a capre, but yeah.
Kagaya niyan, knowing what you know, I mean, you've done the research, you've read this stuff, ano yung experiences ng mga people who experience them, what the sounds, what the smell is, what the sounds are, what the visuals they see. So are there times, kasi ako, I'll be honest, sometimes I will pass by a tree and then I will really smell something bad for some reason. But I remembered
Yeah.
from one of our past guests, Karl rin ang name niya. Sabi niya, one thing he learned is if you smell something somewhere we aren't from, don't say anything about it. Kasi parang, yun nga. Pero yun nga, given what you said na parang feeling mo kapre, were there clues for you to go to that conclusion?
Well, there was just a lingering amount of smoke near the mango tree in our backyard. So like I just extrapolated from there.
Okay, okay. So, meron phone-in message. Parang ano no? Parang radio show. Meron tayong phone-in message. Hindi, pero this was sent to me, I think a few days back. So, we have a Discord group and again, I have some friends there who are experiencers and sensitives. And I mentioned to them, oh, I'll be talking to Karl nga from PH Spirits. So, some of them, masipag, nag-view nakinig nung ilang episodes mo. And you mentioned that story nga about the woman in black. And unsolicited, unsolicited reading, ang sabi ng isa, wait, let me check. So sabi niya, baka gusto mo lang, direct sabi niya, baka gusto mo lang sabihin kay Karl. Ang sabi niya, baka yung babaeng itim, mother siya nang namatayan ng anak nung panahon ng mga Kastila at Amerikano at naghahanap ng anak. Parang si Sisa. Yun lang sabi niya. So, take it as you may, whatever. Pero yun yung, parang Pontianak daw. Yun yung kanyang sinabi. Pero yun lang.
Interesting. I mean, like it happened so far back now that I
Yeah.
can't really remember. Like I only know the highlights.
Yeah. Yes, oo nga. So, going back to actually some mythologies in the Philippines. Let's go to aswangs, okay? Okay, so medyo marami, di ba? Marami around the Philippines. Have you been able to trace kind of when it started? The belief in aswang? Even if it wasn't called aswang back then?
Well, it's definitely pre-colonial. Because like as one can refer to so many different things,
Yes,
and some of
yes.
those things are already very well known in other Southeast Asian cultures. For example, the precursor to the Manananggal, when it was recorded in Plasencia, 1600s, it was called the Magtatanggal, and it's very similar to the Penanggalan of Malaysia, Indonesia is there. Penanggalan is Malaysia, I think.
Mhm.
But it's this creature that leaves its body and flies only with its head and organs.
Okay.
And that was the first recorded manananggal like creature that I found. And like it has very similar qualities to like the app in Cambodia, the layout in Indonesia,
Yes.
the penanggalan
Yes.
of Malaysia, the krause of Thailand. And you can see like if you want to see the origin that wasn't part of the country's history, you have to compare it to every country or people around that area, and then you can see the similarities from there. That's why I can say like aswang stories aren't just an invention of the Spanish, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's the
Yes.
Spanish, they demonize everything's a demon, blah blah
Uh-uh.
blah. And I'm like, there are still evil spirits, like
Mm.
there are catalog creatures, and I don't want to use the term demon, evil
Mm-mm.
spirit
Yes.
that are present in their in their beliefs. So it's like, yeah, it's really hard to say that about the aswang because there are so many aswang qualities.
Yes.
Like the aswang, like the mangkukulam as aswang, where did the kulam happen? How did it start out? And you can see like the different witch traditions around Southeast Asia, and it's like, oh, this is similar. They might have the same origin. I say might because I haven't really delved into it,
Yeah.
and coincidence is still a thing that happens. So it might have grown independently of each other, but the similarities are there because for the aswang, I put it in different groups. So it's like you have the viscera eater, which is the classic aswang with the red tongue that lands on your roof and finds a spot where it can put its tongue in so that it can disembowel you to
Mhm.
eat your intestines, or if you're pregnant, the fetus. You have the corpse eaters that I
Yes.
term as balbal. So they have magical powers to be able to turn banana stalks into the likeness of a human.
Yeah.
So what it does, it just pretty much it straight up steals the body of the corpse that it wants to eat and uses its magic to replace it.
But when you think about that, so if I'm not sure if you've done research rin sa European folklore, when they talk about changelings or when they talk about when fairies replace humans, it's not banana kasi local sa atin yung banana husk, di ba? Pero sa Europe, same stories of when there are replacements, it's a body of a tree or some sort of wood. I'm not sure if
Yeah,
familiar, di ba?
I would like categorize it differently because the changing stories are like, I don't know if it was brought in by the Spanish, probably just change the names, but we do have encantas,
Mm-mm.
and they do that. Like they replace a baby with an encanto baby.
Yes, oo.
Yeah.
O meron din kasi, I'm not sure if nabasa mo na yung, may favorite book ako si Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. So it delves into, yun nga, old English, well, mostly English, old English folklore to old English magic. Tapos part of the story there is, yun nga, some fairy sometimes, when someone is dying, uh, they get the supposedly soul. Let's say they're buried. When you dig it up, yung buried body is now just wood, parang from a tree,
Yeah,
parang
yeah,
ganon.
yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, that's pretty much what the aswang corp eater
Mm-mm, 'di ba?
like. There's also like the aswang as manananggal, uh, because in a lot of areas, aswang and manananggal are synonymous.
Mhm.
It can be said that all manananggal are aswang, but not all aswang are manananggal.
Mm-mm, yes.
You have like other aspects, the aswang as shapeshifters. One thing I noticed through my research is that I've never seen or heard about an aswang story where it turns into a reptile. It's always a boar,
Mm,
a cat,
yes.
a dog,
Mammal, no?
birds. Mammals are birds.
Yeah.
But if anyone knows of an aswang story where they turn into like a snake or a gecko or whatever, like let me know.
Yes.
But
Wala pa nga. Oh.
so far in all of the stories that I've seen, wala.
Personally, what do you think they are? Kasi you mentioned earlier na they are evil spirits, but personally, do you think they are just evil spirits or are they similar to parang bad example, parang vampires? Now they are human but they can do that.
Human. There
Okay.
are a lot of stories where being aswang is actually temporary. Like to become an aswang, they have this special ointment that they put in their armpits. They say specific words from rituals, and then they become an aswang just for the night. And then they clean themselves in a river so that the next day they're back in
Human
as a
form.
human. Yeah.
Following along that question, Carl, given that you've done all this research on all these the spirits of the Philippine archipelago, what is your personal belief with regards to again the things that we do not see that we interact with apparently daily? Do you have like a personal? Do you believe in it or more for you? Parang mas more cerebral siya for you na. Yeah.
I believe that other people. Like I'm friends with a lot of mediums. Again, I was offered to open my third eye multiple times, and I like there is another world out there, definitely, and everyone is just part of it. Because the way that the psyche of people in the Philippines is that there is no separation between the supernatural and the natural.
Yes.
Everything is just part of the natural order. So that's like stories of humans being beings from sky world that descended and lived in the middle world, because background in beliefs in the Philippines, there is a recurring theme of the three-tiered world. You have the sky world or the upper world, the middle world or earth, and the lower world. So there are a lot of stories about how you can reach the sky world while you're still alive. When you die, you don't necessarily go to the lower world. Sometimes you stay permanently as a spirit of the middle world.
But okay, given that you believe, and you mentioned also that you have friends who are sensitives or they're experiencers. Are there any learnings? You mentioned this, okay, preemptively sabihin ko, nakwento mo to sa ibang podcast that you do carry salt. You said that
Yep.
you do carry salt
Salt.
and Saint Benedictine medal. Pero aside from that learning, are there also other learnings that you've gotten from them that you practice now because you do believe they are there?
Yeah, it's pretty much just being conscientious of where you are and what you bring. Like, if I'm buying antiques, I have to be very careful where it came from.
Okay.
It's actually like a story I remember about the Batibat,
Yes.
or Banguat. So it the spirit is there even after its tree was cut down. So there was a story where the bed frame was the one that was cursed because it came from the Batibat's tree. And they never realized that it was the bedspread and thought it was just a general haunting. So it's things like that. Like always tell where things are from. If things get really bad, there are rituals that you should do. Uh, People that you should get backup from. Like I don't like to delve into this part of the research because it's not something that you can write down
Yes.
and people will follow. It's like it's a thing that you feel.
Yes. Are there rituals that you do practice? Kunyari, let's say, I'm not sure, you mentioned antiques, so I'm assuming sometimes you do buy antiques.
Yeah.
And when you do,
Bangkal.
Sa bangkal, okay.
Makati.
Okay. So what rituals or what practices do you do to cleanse that antique? Or parang you wait, you feel it first. Na parang, okay, I feel there's something here before you do
Yeah,
anything.
I
Okay.
have to feel it first
Okay.
because a lot of the time it's uh I don't know if it's just me, but I get really praning
Okay.
about things. So it's like I overextend. It's like, oh crap, I just got this like vase 2 days ago, and like I'm starting to hear things. But then like it's like, oh wait, no, that was just me
Yeah.
hearing things.
Are you sure? Pero, Carl, ito the fact that these two things that you mentioned that you feel it first, and you mentioned that, again, you mentioned that na sometimes you hear things. So are you open to the idea that possibly you do have some sensitivities?
Oh no, I've been told that.
Okay.
Again, like third eye open thing that I mean I can feel stuff. I don't want to feel it more. And more so I don't want to see it.
Okay.
Like if it's there, it's there.
So wait, I hope you don't mind. I'll prod at that thing you said. Pero when you said you feel things, so again, they're different. I'm not sure if your sensitive friends have told you about this. Pero being sensitive has kind of, there are different categories to it. So if you say feel, so there are people who are empaths. There are people that feel proximity wise where the entity is. Sometimes the people feel entities looking at them. So different kinds of feeling. So for you, what kind of feeling do you get? It's like a intuition ba na? Okay, there's something here. Parang ganun.
No, it represents itself physically. Like,
Shit. Talaga?
yeah, like my fingers get cold.
Okay.
Sometimes I smell something. And yeah, I've also been in cases where like I hear things and some of it is not always explainable by it. Okay, sometimes it's not human.
Okay.
That much I can tell.
How can you tell? How can you tell that it isn't human? I mean, meaning mo human spirit or meaning mo hindi alive human?
A non-human spirit.
Okay. So, do you mind telling me about that? How can you identify for yourself that it's a non-human spirit?
Because it's like a hum. It's not really voices. Okay, it's not a voice, but you can hear trying to be understood.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's something like that. It's like it's on the low register, like it's like guttural and like a growl.
Okay. But it's trying to communicate.
I think it's trying to communicate. That's just like my feeling on the whole thing. But I've only experienced this like a few times in different places.
Would you mind sharing the place? Sharing the places. We can cut
Well,
out the ano. Oo, pero curious lang.
it happened a lot when I was a kid. And some okay. I'm not sure if it's the same place because again I was a kid and I don't really remember much of it. But my dad's family is from a small town called and I felt something when I was there. And fast forward uh, to my undergrad years, I was doing a paper on the languages spoken in. Apparently, there was a barangay full of aswang.
Okay.
Like they would not let me physically go there
Yes.
because everyone in the town believed that they were aswang.
Grabe.
So like I'm like maybe those two memories are related
Yes, yes.
somehow.
Recently, meaning let's say in the past 5 years, have you had that same experience? Have you had experiences similar to that? Hearing and sensing?
Well, I do have a habit of hearing things. So I was in the States, I think last year lang. and I was in my tita's house. And whenever I would go after lights are out, like mga 11 na,
Mm-mm.
I would hear people having a conversation outside, and then when I looked out, no one was there,
Okay.
and it happened like a few times. So I'm just like, it wasn't disturbing enough that I
Yes.
needed to do something about it,
Yes.
but it's just like, I don't know, just weird stuff happens around
Mm-mm.
me.
Shocking to Shocking to sa akin, Carla. Well, based sa mga nakwento mo before. Where was this in the States? Your experience?
New Jersey.
New Jersey, okay. So, we talked to this girl who was in Washington. And yun nga, medyo similar na she would be hearing things rin, similar to that. Na mas acute yung hearing niya with regards to, I mean, in general,
Mm-hmm.
yun nga, may napipick up na sounds na ano. So, would you say that you are more sensitive in that sense na hearing, it doesn't have to be hearing the undead or hearing the spirits, but in general, you are more attuned to listening? Is that it?
Listening and feel, like, again, it manifests itself physically. So like when my fingers start to get really cold, I know something's there.
So physically, it's just your hands. Wala sa batok, wala sa other parts of your body.
Fingers usually.
Fingers usually. Okay. That's the first time I've heard that actually. Another discovery for today. So tips of fingers, ganon.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll move out of that na, Carl. Hindi na kita stress about it. Baka nararamdaman ka ngayon. Okay. You mentioned in some of your interviews again that you have kind of cataloged, I'm not sure if this number has increased from the last time you've said this, but around 2,000 mythical creatures.
Oh, I'm already up to 3,000 now.
Okay. Okay.
So many.
So, this is just my assumption. This is just my assumption. But again, you've done the research. Maybe you have more insight into this. Is it safe to assume that, because I'm trying to say this because it's trying to support my theory about entities, but is it kind of safe to assume that, yes, there are different names and there are different appearances for all these mythical creatures around the Philippines, but sometimes the way they are described or the way they interact with people is kind of the same. Let's say technically if we classify them, earth capre-like yan. Duende-ish earth-like yan. Water,
Yeah.
di ba?
Yeah, definitely. That's how I catalog them. And I try, like, because a lot of the times when academics have tried to catalog these creatures, Western ideas. So
Yes.
that's why they're like, oh, it's like a fairy, or it's like
Yes,
an
yes.
elf, or if it's like a gnome, or if it's like a dwarf. But that doesn't really reflect the way that they are the Philippines. I mean, like, you can categorize certain creatures in certain times. Like, there are harvest spirits, there are earth spirits, there are spirits of the water, there are halimaw, which are more physical spirit. Like, I term maligno as one of them, as like the incorporeal evil spirit. You have like actual beasts, like, because there are some spirits that are like the mantahungal or the mantabungal of the Tagbanwa that appear as a cow with tusk
Okay.
that force people to death. Like, there are centaurs in the Philippines,
Yes.
called the Kabalan in Camarines. There are also like the Bawa of Aklan, which is a centaur that eats freshwater shrimp.
Very particular, no?
Yeah. So, I mean, you could say that there is a way to describe them, because there are some spirits that do follow specific acts and have specific qualities.
Yes. But are there legends or myths that you feel aren't exposed that much? Meaning, kasi yun nga, like I said, parang na-expose lang ko sa Sigbin, 2-3 years ago, because of my deep dive and my pero are there legends and myths that you feel that should be more known given your research? Na parang this has significance with our our history, or this has significance with our identity as Filipinos.
Well, and this extends to my uh, feelings as a linguist, as a social scientist as well.
Yeah.
Uh, People are dying out. Like, there are 175 different ethno-linguistic groups in the country. In like maybe 50 years, 100 of them will be gone. And what I am trying to do is I'm trying to show people a specific way that other people see the world, and that it's through their folklore. So Tiruray or Tiduray, their stories were cataloged only in this out of print 1973 book. We should put that online, put it on Project Gutenberg or whatever. But the important stories that I feel are important are those that are dying out.
Yes. This question just came to me. I mean, in my mind, parang again, basing it on your research, how do people name these entities? Is it more descriptive na in their kasi syempre language nila? Is it more descriptive na kagaya nung tambaloslos? I am assuming parang because of the physical appearance, yun yung description, or is it more of sound based, meaning the sound a certain creature makes, so that's how they name it? Have you been able to like observe that?
I mean, like I've gone through a lot, and there are onomatopoeic names: the
Yes.
tik-tik, the wak-wak, the kaskat. There are names that are just descriptive, like in Surigao, they call their moon eater the Badina Mamang, which just translates to big animal.
Okay.
So you have like beings named after specific qualities that they have, like Maria Labo. That story is like Labo is Hiligoy ng stash. So it's descriptive then as well. But a lot of the other times they're just like proper names.
Okay.
And it's hard to pinpoint, like, was that actually the name of an ancestor that stories were told for so long that they forgot that it was an actual person
Yes.
and not just a spirit.
I remember in one of your interviews you mentioned that nga na parang sometimes, correct me na lang if I remembered wrong, but you mentioned that sometimes legends, most of the time legends are real people.
Yeah.
And during, diba, parang over time, they become, yun nga, they're mythologized, and the stories are made up around them, and they become legends because of that. Have you come across other hidden cities similar to, are you familiar with
Biringan?
Biringan? Kasi parang I've heard stories of people from the northern part tell me, oh, there we also have that here. Then they call it, I forgot, nakalimutan ko yung tawag, pero meron rin daw. Have you come across that?
In some stories, yes. Usually it's described as just like a place of the supernatural. So it's mostly descriptive and not really given a name,
Okay.
at least as far as I know.
Do you also like observe and, I mean, do research on Southeast Asian mythologies? I mean, just to check if medyo similar to, or medyo hindi similar to.
Yeah, sometimes. A lot of the beliefs we have are also passed down from Hindu Buddhist traditions. There's also a not insignificant part that's from Chinese beliefs because of the trade and things like that. And again, like influence from the Spanish and even Americans.
Okay.
There's actually a belief of the devil as the American devil. I'm not sure if you're familiar with like Old Scratch.
No.
It's the devil. You can challenge the devil in a contest that you choose, and if you win, you get to keep your life. But yeah, there are some stories like that proliferated because of the Americans.
Mm-mm.
But again, like the Philippines is just a jumble of like
Yes,
folk
that's true.
Catholicism, folk Islam, animist beliefs, Hindu Buddhist beliefs, Chinese beliefs, Spanish everything.
So, you mentioned this another interview, I think, sa Comics Man to. But I think some of our listeners need to hear it also. Yung kay Bulan at kay Sidapa, tama ba?
Oh,
Yung
okay.
misconception, yes. So,
I have mixed feelings about it
yeah.
because it's a story. Everything's a story.
Yes.
But my problem, okay, so the legend, if you could say that,
Yes.
goes like in Panay, there is a mountain called Mount Majaas, where two male gods live together. Some say they're married, some say they're just lovers. Um, the story goes that Bulan, the moon, the boy moon, was being hunted by the Bakunawa, and Bulan sought refuge in Mount Majas.
Mm-hmm.
But that story is not pre-colonial at all.
Okay.
There was a post about
Mm-mm.
it that said that it was from the Sugidanon epics of Panay, of the Panay Bukidnon or the Sulod. But when people reached out to actual researchers, they were like, nope, that story is not
Mm-mm.
anywhere near there. But again, like a story is a story. If you say like it's a modern invention, because what I do is like I still catalog modern stories
Yes.
as what they are, like urban legends, like the White Lady of Balete Drive. It's
Mm-mm.
still a mythical creature to me, but I also know that it's not pre-colonial.
Yes.
So my problem is like everywhere is like, uh, oh, the Philippines has a history of this, and it's characterized by the story. But it's like if the story isn't real, then your whole worldview of how things go also crumbles.
Yes.
So it's like I feel like people are way too invested trying to find uh, pre-colonial sources of things that they've already decided upon.
Yes. Agree. Okay. Let's go to your Mythica Obscura. Maybe you'd like to give a background. Kasi ako na-excite lang ako when I saw that map. Parang sabi ko, exciting to. Pero you can explain it better than I will.
Okay, so Mythica Obscura is a collection of the stories that I make. I have 4 volumes of the zine out now, and we're compiling it into a book. So there are 44 stories total, and the poster is part of it. We mapped out which areas the creatures are from. The book is all illustrated. Each story has a description of the creature and a fictional story attached to it. And hopefully it'll be out soon.
Okay. Pero where can they order and all that?
Oh, you can just go through to our Facebook page
Okay.
or our Instagram, or go to any of the conventions. We're at Comiket, Comic Area, and other conventions.
Karl, thank you. How can people reach you if they have maybe stories to tell you or if they have questions?
Facebook, Instagram at phspirits, phspirits at gmail.com. Mostly just there.
Okay.
We're very active on social media.
Yes, oo nga. Thank you, Karl. Salamat.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you again, Karl, for agreeing to share your stories and experiences. There are times when I encounter an entity or spirit from one of the interviews, and I sometimes go to PH Spirits to check if it's a region-specific entity or not. Particularly yung si Muning, if naalala niyo yung feline-faced entity. If you are unfamiliar with Karl's work, you can check out PH Spirits. The link will be in the show notes. He actually had a book out middle of this year. It's called Mythica Obscura. Second printing is coming out soon, I believe. Link to the book and other books from PH Spirits are in the show notes. If this is your first episode of the Paranormal Podcast, hello and welcome. The podcast is a collection of first-hand experiences from people with paranormal encounters. If you'd like to share your experiences, you can email me at paranormalsph@gmail.com or message me on the Paranormal Podcast Discord server, where you can also share your experiences there, anonymously if you prefer it that way. Some episodes, of course, are interconnected. Some are standalone, like this. But I would suggest that you start from episode 1 so that you don't miss out on the references and connected episodes. Before we end the episode, let's just go through some comments from episode 158, Ang Binisita. Ito yung kwento ni Mang Herbert. Si Oblak sabi, the best ang kwento ng mga old-timers talaga. Oo nga Oblak, iba rin talaga datingan ng mga kwentong ganito. Kahit di nga mapaniwala yung ibang tao sa kwento ni Mang Herbert, ang sabi niya, alam niyang na-experience niya yun. From iBug Yellow naman, half engkanto si Mang Herbert and kaya nag-bridge siya ng gap between the two planes, kaya siya nakakakuha ng material objects from the air. Naku, iBug Yellow, yan rin ang aking theory. Up till sa recording nito, siya pa rin lang ang nakausap kong nakaka-interact physically with objects from the spirit realm. So, yung torch, yung sigarilyo, yung pag-heal sa kanya, dami talagang unusual. So, again, baka may makausap tayong na-experience rin yung ganito, so di natin alam. Baka engkantao rin siya, di natin alam. Pero ngayon na nasabi mo yan ay Bagyelo, talagang kakaibang tisoy si Mang Herbert. So, baka nga, di natin alam. And last na, from Jen naman, I love Mang Herbert's story, bitin actually direct. Hi Jen, oo, medyo bitin nga. Shortened version na rin kasi yan. May iba pang stories actually si Mang Herbert pero hindi na siya paranormal related so hindi ko na siya sinama. And yun nga, nakiusap lang akong bumisita sa bahay nila kaya nahiya rin ako mag-overstay. So yan na muna for now sa comments. If meron kayong thoughts, questions, violent reaction sa episodes, iwan nyo lang yan sa comment section ng Spotify, Facebook, or YouTube. I'll make sure na ma-mention yan. Before we part, di natin syempre makalimutan magpasalamat sa ating paranormal Patreons and coffee supporters. Maraming salamat, Christine, Z, Rona, JT, JD, Mark, Oy Osiana, KB, Arian, Justine, Fallen, Introvert, JM, Biker Mama, Janelle, Kim, Leia, Laura, Bea, and J3. Kung gusto mo support ang podcast sa ganitong paraan, pwede mo check yung link sa show notes. Pwede rin naman support ang podcast sa pag-share nito sa mga kakilala mong ma-enjoy yung mga ganitong kwentuhan. The Paranormal Podcast is engineered and produced by F90 Productions. If you have the time, please rate or review the podcast in whatever podcast platform you prefer. Maraming salamat ulit sa lahat. Thank you to the people who have shared their stories, to the listeners, and thank you to our guides for their patience. Please stay safe.